Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Colin Tück. I work as a senior expert for digitalization innovation with the Knowledge Innovation Center, and the co-presenter is Ronald from SURF.
Yeah, so you already introduced me. That makes that much easier. So I'm Ronald. I'm with SURF. I'm an information architect with SURF and involved in standards and trying to figure out how to get all these different ways of talking about data somehow intertwined or connected with one another. And I'll hand it over to Colin now because, well, that's how we divided it.
Yes. Thank you, Ronald. I guess we can tell a lot of more fun stories about ourselves, but we keep that for the break or for the famous karaoke bar. So our title this morning is about open ecosystems for quality data. So we are not so much talking about quality assurance in the, let's say, more formal sense now, but more focusing on how can we get important information on quality and insights into quality of micro-credentials and courses to the learners and to others who might need them. What we are presenting to some extent the results of a project that KIC is also a partner of, which is called QualityLink, where we've been collaborating with our partners over the last year to start defining an architecture for having a more smooth and interoperable exchange of quality data. So the challenges from which on why we started thinking about this, I would say, is that we have, as discussed already to quite some extent yesterday and during the sessions, we have quite a huge diversity of micro-credentials. We have, I think, luckily, a very open and very inclusive definition of micro-credentials in Europe at the moment. That allows for a lot of diversity. But that, of course, also makes it challenging for everyone to understand what is out there and to, let's say, digest and understand the offer of micro-credentials that we have. We do see that basic course data on micro-credentials is not very often yet published in a structured and open format. So sometimes it's published on a website, sometimes it's published in a catalog, but it's not always available as like open data or in a interoperable format. And when you look at other data, not even basic course data from higher education institutions or other providers themselves, but things such as ratings or ranking information that is also very rarely available in an open interoperable format. Why do we think, why did we think such data should better be available openly and should better be aggregated maybe in a single place? Is of course, there are potential learners first and foremost. They want to have a place maybe where you can get guidance, where you can get information on what offer of micro-credentials and courses is available. Education providers like universities and others themselves might need information about what others are doing for the purposes of mapping and benchmarking. So for example, I heard some colleagues telling me also here yesterday that it's not that easy to figure out what others are already offering if you want to make sure that what you are offering is something different or is not just repeating what someone else is doing. Then, of course, information on courses that are out there is important for the labor market and for recognition, both on the labor market and in formal education sectors. So to recognize your credential for a larger degree or things like that. And of course, there's an important part about Europe-wide visibility. So if of course, if you're an education provider, you might want everyone to know which courses you offer, and especially a lot of European university alliances are working on offering micro-credentials, so they want, of course, quite frequently to have all this offer represented in a joint catalog. So what we are trying to achieve with the architecture that we've been working on is to really have groundwork for a Europe-wide course catalog where you could find information on micro-credentials and other courses from various universities and other education providers, can compare them and find both basic information from the education provider, but also some quality indicators on those courses. So for example, about how other students have rated this, etc. So these are really very simple mock-ups of what we expect to see on a public website in the end of the day. But at this stage, we're going to give you a little bit of insights into how we are trying to make this possible, what is the technical architecture we have been working on, and also how are we trying to bridge different existing data standards and different existing technical standards in the field. So what we want to achieve is really to have an architecture where various data sources, on the one hand, higher education institutions and other education providers themselves, trusted third sources, maybe like the database DECA from the European Quality Assurance Register, and also other sources like rankings, etc., can all publish their data about courses in an interoperable format, and this can be neatly aggregated into one single open data set that where the same different information on the same course from different sources is able to be matched against each other, and that this data then becomes available openly for all stakeholders who might need it, students, employers, recognition officers, and so on. So what we have been working on in the past month is to try to get an architecture that is open, that builds on what we have, that doesn't redo things that other existing standards already do very well, but rather to fill the gaps between existing data standards and systems we already have. Because this is a bit of an illustration where what is around there and what we want to where we want to plug in with the architecture that's been worked on. So, for example, we have various API standards for exchanging course information. We have data standards such as the ELM. But, for example, that is a data standard, but it doesn't have a universal approach to how universities themselves could expose information in ELM format about their courses. I mean, countries can do it, but universities themselves, there's no standardized way. So basically, what we are trying to do is to see where are those gaps and where can we fill in proposals for specifications to make all these existing standards work smoothly together. To create a really an open ecosystem where every education provider or other data source can easily expose their data in a standardized format. So, to do that, amongst all these nice components illustrated here that we have been designing, and I have to say at this point, we have been designing them together with, of course, a project consortium, but also with a very active and very great group of external experts, one of them being Ronald, and a lot of others of you are in the room. So we're really thankful for a group of about 15 external experts that we were able to get on a standards consultation board to discuss all these details with us, and who have been really excited to go into hour-long discussions about, okay, how do we best extend ELM, how do we best connect these two dots. So one of the main challenges we had, and this of course is how do we manage to convert between different data standards, because we have various APIs and we have the European learning model, and we want to get all into one data set in the end that is understandable by everyone. So we thought we need to get everything converted to the ELM eventually. That of course requires a bit of work and looking at the differences between different standards, and that's where I'm handing over to Ronald.
Yeah, standards. I love standards. So let's just do that then. As Colin mentioned before, we did some research with regards to standards. We had a lot of discussions, and in the end, within QualityLink itself, we came up with a beautiful picture. The people from QualityLink did a marvelous job in the sense of trying to figure out how these different standards that are already out there, how they work together, and what they exactly do. And this is a kind of a high-level overview of what these different standards look like. Just a show of hands, just to be interested to see how many of these standards you guys already know. So, EWP Course API, how many people know about that one? All right, so that's about 5 of you. Okapi, how many people have got that one under their belt? That's 2 of you. ELM, yeah, there we have a lot of hands. OAPI, lovely, a lot of hands as well, which is nice. Edu API, well, also a lot of hands. So we have 3 prevailing standards out there, which, oh, Elmo, sorry, Elmo, and then there's a lot of, so we have 4 prevailing standards, I'm sorry. So we have 4 standards which are, well, they are used at a lot of different levels. They have different use cases, of course, but in a sense, they also provide information that we all want to have. We want to have information with regards to these courses, with regards to these learning outcomes, because we want to use those learning outcomes at a later stage as well for credentialing, because we want to know what they have learned. At least we want to know what the intended learning was, because that's something of intended learning outcomes are. So pretty much what we started on was, okay, if we want to do this mapping, we can do a mapping between all the different ones, because I don't know who's had math and graph theories ever before in their courses. Yeah, I see a couple of hands. Well, pretty much what it boils down to, if you map everything with each other, you end up with a lot of mapping. And if you just map everything with one thing, that ends up with a lot fewer mappings, and you can map back and forth between that one mapping. So within QualityLink, we decided that we should start with figuring out if we could map everything to ELM. Since we're in Europe, it would make sense to try something European to map this data to. So what we started doing is, well, why not start with something to map upon? And no, not. Oh, you're going way too quick. Oh yeah. So what we started up with was the initial idea of mapping at least 2 standards, because we had to know whether that idea of trying to get these types of data to work together, whether that idea even flies, because otherwise, well, we have to come up with a different solution or a different way of working with one another. We had some initial thoughts on how to map, and then we came up with a tool which is called DESM. It's been created in the US by 3T Innovation, or T3. I always mix those 2 things up. And it's also being used within Credential Engine as a backbone to map credentials. So we already have some experience with that kind of tooling. And so we started out trying to figure out if we could map everything. And well, we ended up with some issues with the tool, in the sense that it requires everything in ontologies. So you have to put everything into turtle files, which, who knows turtle? Yes. 2 and 3, but it's a nice language, but it's well, it requires some insight. Well, and then we ended up with some other issues, in the sense that if we want to map OOAPI at a deeper level, because we chose ELM and OOAPI to start this mapping exercise, if we want to map them, we noticed that there was something strange going on, in the sense that ELM works at a level of, well, we have a learning achievement and activity specification, which is part of the learning opportunities and qualifications profile. You have the learning opportunity instance and the education provider. Well, OOAPI has a few more. So we had to figure out how to get that mapping up and running. And to give you an idea as to how that worked, this is a quick start of that mapping. So, well, lovely. We all share the same idea about pointing to where that course can be found. We share the idea of a link. We shared a few other ideas as well, and maybe that's where we can delve in a little bit deeper into the tooling just to get an idea as to what we've done with the mapping, and then we'll go into some of the findings and conclusions based on that. No, it's already up there. Yeah, you just click it, and we're fine. Yeah. Where's the browser? Suspense. The browser's popping up. Well, there you have it. Huzzah! This is the same picture that I just showed you. So the link we all have in common, but then we start scrolling a little bit. Oh, I start scrolling a little bit. That's fine. And then you start noticing that, well, we have some elements, like for example, there's an alternative name in ELM, there are awarding information in ELM, and you see that we start with similar-ish. So we do have the same ideas, but there are different ways of wording, different ways in which we go through all these elements, and as you can see, mapping just an idea of an object is only a starting point. As you can see, it's a long list, and then we start ending up with issues, bigger issues, in the sense of, well, data gets referenced twice at one element and only once in the other element. How do you divvy them up? What's a logical way in which to do that? Or do you need the standards to become bigger? Do you need to extend information? The other way around, of course, as well. What do you do at the moment that you have a lot of information and the other standard only has one field for it? For example, one of them can tell you everything about a grade. The other one can just tell you, well, you are competent or you're not. And do you want that difference, yes or no? Is it important, yes or no? And then there's, well, a long list. But also elements that we don't have. So, for example, ELM doesn't have an address field as a separate field. It's always part of an organization, or it's always part of something. But it's not part of where is that course being given, or where is that course or program actually, what's the location of that thing? It differs a bit, because if the organization is a university in, let's say, Eindhoven, and the university has a dependance somewhere else, let's say in Amsterdam, that's an hour travel between the two places. And it gets worse in countries that are bigger, I suppose. So if it's an on-site course, that makes that much more difficult. So then there's other information like coordinators. You kind of want to know who you want to talk to, or other information. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but as you can see, we did some mapping, and that's just for the learning opportunity specification. We also did the same exercise with regards to a learning opportunity instance and an educator provider. By the way, who knows what these three things are? Just because I go through them rapidly, and there's just yes. So the learning opportunity specification pretty much defines what is being taught, and the instance is the thing that's being taught at that moment, that location, with that professor or that person. And the education provider is the one that you either start to accredit in some cases, or at least the party or the organization that's in charge of those courses. Now I want to go back to my presentation. That should be doable. Because in the presentation we will continue a little bit further with, well, the general findings that we had. Let's see if I can. Yeah, there we have it. So, questions. Lots of questions. That's what we ended up with. And we're trying to figure out if we can find solutions to all of them, but at least we do need to figure out what to do with some of them. We jokingly refer to, well, in the OAPI there's a windmill property and we really want it in there. How do we put it into the, to the ELM? We're not going that far, but we do want to figure out what to do with elements that aren't there. What do you do? How do you extend the ELM? Is there a possibility to do that? Can you add additional data if that data at least is relevant for your country or for your educational institution, if you want to delve that deep into the nitty-gritty? As mentioned before, it's a lot of the questions are related to how to handle the data. How do you split it? What's a simple way of doing that, or what's a simple way of putting stuff together? As I mentioned before, if you put it together and want to split it at a later moment, you have to think about that on the beforehand. So if you go from ELM to OAPI and you merge it in one, or let's do it the other way around. That makes it more fun. You go from OAPI to ELM, and you go from ELM to EduAPI, for example. In one way you start putting the data together, in the other way you have to take it apart. How do you do that? So we have to come up with solutions also with regards to, well, the handling of the data that we have. And then, of course, what do you do with missing data? I really want this windmill data in my system, or I really need this other type of data. How do you deal with that if ELM really wants something and your data doesn't provide it yet? That means that you have to come up with governance types of solutions, or with, well, a way of interacting at least with the different parties who are involved with these standards. So standards, very nice, but it also needs a lot of talking with one another and governance and ways in which you start finding one another. And that's, I think, one of the great things that has been done up until so far with QualityLink. We're at least starting to find one another and talk to each other about these issues. Well, other findings are mainly with regards to, well, how do you end up with data with regards to enrollments? Because is a course catalog or course catalog instance merely only for information with regards to this is what we have, or this is what is available to you as a student? There's a difference there, because if everything is fully enrolled already, why would I bother trying to enroll myself because it's not available? So having that data out there as well as part of an instance might be of interest. And the question then is, should that be part of your standard? Yes. Or should that be part of your standard? No. And how do you make your other parties also aware of that? ELM doesn't provide it for that currently. So we have to think if that's something that we should look into or not. Then a couple of other things that well, in the education provider we found not that much, and I have to hurry up, I understand, but we're almost there. In the education provider, there's not that much difference. There's a couple of extra fields that we're missing. We have to figure out if those are very needed and how to handle that. And then there's the further work, pretty much, because it doesn't stop. We have to think about, if we want to continue working with this DESM tool, we have to think of better ways in which we can work with one another on that. Since we now proven that it worked with OAPI and ELM, we also have to do this with the other standards, because it's not really fair to say, oh yeah, this one worked, let's stop and do nothing. So let's just figure out how we can do this together and move on from there. And something very important that we started noticing at a later stage was, it's nice that we've done it now at the property level, but it also goes deeper in the sense that we need to align on vocabularies as well, which means that we need to understand what is that mode of study or mode of learning. What do we mean with that? There is that element, but I noticed that in many cases nobody fills in that data because we don't know what it means. So we need to figure out how to work on that together and improve that. So on those questions that we have and we still need to solve. I think I'll hand it over to you, Colin, or not? Yeah. You can sign off.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just signing off with you now. Really signed off with what we are going to do next. Yeah. Not only the two of us or the consortium, but with other colleagues. Just one very last word from my side is what can you do? I mean, not only those of you who describe your dreams in Turtle, but also everyone else, all mortals. And so on. At this moment, we actually have a survey that would be great if you maybe have a look at it to tell us which quality information do you actually think is the most relevant, because we have a lot of data sources that we might work with, but we want to make sure that we focus on the right ones. Very soon you will actually really be able to review some draft technical specifications. Also, we will share the link to the tool that, out to the mapping on the tool that Ronald has shown, and so on and so forth. And later this year, there will also be a possibility to actually expose your own course catalog or your own informational learning opportunity in interoperable format and have it aggregated by the QualityLink pilot aggregator.